Well, imagine looking up at the night sky, and instead of stars, what do you see? You see a fleet of artificial mirrors, giant, massive mirrors hurtling overhead, redirecting sunlight back down to Earth. So it would be sunny at nighttime. That scenario isn't science fiction anymore. We know we've heard talks of like dimming the sun, but what about amplifying it? Sunlight on demand, as they say on their website. This is a company called Reflect Orbital. It's proposing to launch some 4,000 massive space mirrors. This is what it would look like in cartoon form. And it would beam solar power back to the Earth. These mirrors would then redirect sunlight back to Earth, hitting solar panels. But astronomers are warning that from an astronomical perspective, it's pretty catastrophic. Reflect Orbital claims on its website that its constellation will enable solar power generation at night. It'll make crops grow better and stronger, possibly replace urban lighting, no more street lights at night. Just have giant mirrors in the sky, provide emergency illumination in disaster zones, enable people to work at nighttime. Reflect Orbital's spokesperson told Space.com in an email that by 2030, the company envisions a constellation of 4,000 of these satellites around the world. So what could go wrong? Chris Lato is a F-16 pilot, a material scientist, UFO and space researcher, and he joins me now to talk all about this. Chris, great to see you here. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi, Clayton. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So when you first heard about this story, what was your initial response?
My initial response is, are we putting lasers in space? Are we putting weapons in space? But yeah, looking into it more, I think it's actually really interesting. I think high latitude places like Alaska could really benefit hugely from this sort of technology. These mirrors could extend daylight and really boost solar energy output pretty much around the globe, especially in areas like Alaska. I lived there for 4 years, and they could definitely use it. You can stare at the sun at noontime in the winter, so I definitely could have used some sunlight then. They could also use this to provide lighting for remote or possibly military operations. I think that's why the U.S. Air Force, or at least one reason why it's interested. So anywhere you need illumination, it puts out basically 4 times the light, they say, allegedly 4 times the light of a full moon. And it was basically a full moon out tonight.
Tonight, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you could see pretty clearly with 4 times the light. But I think really why the Air Force is, invested at least a small amount, 1.25 million. So it's not a large amount of money that the Air Force has invested, but it's probably in laser optical communication. So laser internet, essentially. I think that's why they're doing it. You need precision control, and using radio waves can really be intercepted easily. I was an electronic attack officer for the aggressors actually in Alaska, and it's wide field. Anyone can intercept your radio transmission, or it's hard to get a really tight band. But if you can shoot a laser now and use that as your optical communication, then it's much more secure. And so I think they're actually interested in this for some sort of laser internet.
Microplastics infiltrating every part of our lives. Scientists estimate we can now consume a credit card's worth of plastic every single week through our food, water, even the air we breathe. One study found plastic particles in 100% of human lung samples. Nobody is safe from exposure. It gets worse. These plastics don't just sit in our body. They cross the gut lining, leach into your blood. But there's good news. New research on kimchi. That's right. Kimchi can actually remove it from your body. Gets rid of BPA, phthalates, all of that stuff from your body. Kimchi 1 from Brightcore Nutrition does all of that in a pill form, so in a supplement form. Like if you don't like the taste of kimchi, like eating, fermented cabbage or those other things like with your meal, some people don't like the taste. Well, that's great. Now you get all the benefits of kimchi in supplement form. It's a potent ally in this toxic world. It's packed with over 900 probiotic strains, unique to kimchi and proven to break down BPA, help you detox from the inside out. It doesn't just support digestion. It helps protect your cells, your brain, your hormones, your future. Your body was never designed to handle plastic, but your gut was designed to protect you. You just have to give it the right tools. Right now, you can get 25% off with our code Redacted. Just go to the link below. It's mybrightcore.com/redacted. You get 25% off. But even better, If you call them, they're an American company. They want to talk with you and develop a relationship. Imagine that. It's like going back to the 1950s when you would actually talk to a company. They'll give you 50% off if you call them. 50 instead of 25% off. Just call them 888-404-6312. Get 50% off and free shipping. So your initial thought was, oh, they're going to be using this for some weapons, and it's under the it's under the auspices of giving us more power, But underneath it all, there's a darker story here. That was your initial thought about this. Makes sense.
Yeah, that was my initial thought. I think, I guess most people would think that for putting mirrors in space, you're beaming sunlight down, but it's actually the physics of it doesn't make any sense. It's 700 kilometers away, and you can't really even beam that amount of energy. You can't really focus it down. So it's not like you're burning an ant, with a magnifying glass. This is much further away, 700 kilometers. And so I don't think they're going to be able to focus that energy down to even, heat up a missile. That's what the airborne missile defense system was. If you remember that big 747 the Air Force had years ago, and it was a big iodine laser, and that was actually used to shoot ballistic missiles. As their boost phase, they would actually shoot the laser. The idea was to shoot the laser at the booster while it's launching, and then it would warp it essentially, and the missile would fail. So I don't even think they could do that using this sort of technology. I really think it is to provide illumination, and like I said before, is precision optical aiming. Really, are you able to bounce lasers? They did have the Star Wars idea, the program in the past. If you could shoot a giant laser from the Earth, then you could bounce it off a mirror in space, and then you could have some sort of advanced laser system. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of their ideas for using this technology, but I think it would be much more useful for logistics rather than some sort of weapon system.
I talked to an insider today who is pretty plugged in this regard. I was asking this person, what do they make of this? And I want to get your take on this. This person said the civilian application doesn't seem that compelling, although it might be profitable, that it may have unknown military applications that would be the real purpose of getting so many up there in space. So yes, an unknown military application seems like it might make the most sense. Although they're couching it like this would be great for our crops. Like this will be great for your corn and all of that. So we'd have it a little extra sunlight. It'll make our crops sturdier. I hadn't thought about the military side of this for sure.
Yeah, I guess, the most aggressive form of it would be you bounce a giant laser from the ground, right? Putting that sort of power into space doesn't make sense if you're going to use it as a mirror. So I guess, theoretically, you could shoot a giant laser from the ground and bounce it around and then hit a target on the ground, on the other side of the Earth, if you will. But that sort of technology, satellites are very predictable. In order for them not to be predictable, it's very expensive. So I think it'll actually be more a communication system or advancing the technology for the Air Force and the Space Force. And right now, it's expensive to send satellites into space, right? But we have big breakthroughs coming through. I know people don't like to talk about them, but Elon Musk and his SpaceX program, the Starship, if it actually is able to get to orbit and land, a reusable rocket ship, then instead of this satellite costing $20 million to get up to orbit, this mirror, it could cost $10,000 to $20,000. And in that case, what we could see in the next 10 years is a huge, a plethora, really a gold rush of space. So using space for these sort of civilian assets where it won't be ridiculously expensive to send mirrors up into space. It would actually make financial sense. And then in that case, you can actually beam down sunlight, in the later parts of the day when everyone gets home and when we really need the energy. Your renewable resources, right now, your batteries haven't come on board yet. They're not quite that cheap. So this could actually supplement. And I could see it actually being commercially viable, where you could actually beam down sunlight from 7 to 8 p.m., 7 to 9 p.m., and actually get usable sunlight energy. So
yeah,
the question is, what will it do to the night sky? Yeah.
I'm fascinated by this idea. It seems strange to me because we had solar panels, and we're about to do them again, actually. But you could tell. I mean, if a cloud moved in front of your solar panels, we lived in Portugal, like you, and
Wow.
I think we had like 30 or something solar panels and ran our house, ran our studio, and everything. But if a cloud moved in front or just got a little bit dim, you could immediately see it in the system. Like, so I can only imagine like having a mirror in space using sunlight at that far out to direct it down, how much power you would actually get on solar panels. It'd be, I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying that part of it. It sounds like an interesting idea. I just don't know. I don't know. Plus, you'd have to get blackout shades because it'd always be light. I mean, I wonder why the astronomers are so pissed off about this. What's your sense of why astronomers are saying this could be a catastrophe?
Yeah, they've been upset since Starlink started launching so many satellites. You just go outside and look up and you'll probably see a Starlink satellite. And my channel's focused on, UAP investigation, and I constantly get videos of people that say, hey, I saw a UFO, I videoed it, and, I look at the video and it's a Starlink satellite. And even there's optical illusions from Starlink satellites. So there's thousands of them now. And so astronomers are angry because it gets in the way. It gets in the way of their ground telescopes, and it, clogs up the night sky. So I think that's what they're really upset about. But I think it's just the future. As soon as we lower the cost to space, there's going to be probably millions of satellites up there for all different types of purposes. So it's just the future we're going to have to deal with. And as far as astronomy, it's going to be that much cheaper now to put up telescopes into space. And actually, a telescope in space is much more capable. Just like a laser, you don't have to deal with the atmosphere. The atmosphere, like you just mentioned there, the clouds, huge factor, right? In your power generation on your solar panel. Well, the telescopes have to deal with that as well. So anytime a cloud comes over a telescope on the ground, they're totally out of it. They can't see anything. It doesn't matter how many satellites in the sky. So the future of astronomy is also in the space. So they're going to put the telescopes into space. So I understand why they're upset, but I think, it's just going to be the future that we're going to have is going to be space industry, and the telescopes are going to be up in space.
We won't get to see any of the images. They'll keep them hidden from us. We want to look at the moon base. We want to look at the multiple moon bases. We want to see UAPs. We want to get a close-up of 3-eye Atlas. Now, they'll shut those telescopes down for a few hours so we don't get those images. But I'm with you. I would love to see all these. I would love to see space-based telescopes that we could access and review on a regular basis. And then all of us who are obsessed with this topic could be sitting for hours going through footage to examine UAPs and everything else that is up there.
Well, I'm optimistic that we can get our own telescopes up there. Like, we're not on mainstream network right now. This is decentralized networks right here. I'm not censoring myself, at least. I'm not being censored by anyone. I suspect the same for you. So hopefully in the future, we can get our own telescopes up that we know are not being censored by any government agency or organization. I'm sure they don't want to hear me say that, but I really see that as the future. As the costs come down, you just can't keep reality classified.
Oh, I would love that. I would love to have the Lato Files telescope working side by side with the Redacted telescope in space.
Amazing.
Where we would have our own decentralized network and no one can censor us. I would love that. I would love it. Chris, great to see you. Thank you so much for this. And you made me a little bit more optimistic about this. I was, initially a little worried about it, but I think you've opened my eyes, especially on the Alaska perspective. But we'll see. We'll see what sort of nefarious military applications they're hiding here. Chris, great to see you. Thank you so much. Thanks for staying up late for us there in Portugal. I know it's late.
Yeah, thanks, Clayton. And happy you were here in Portugal. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.